Hey guys, it's Core Ross and welcome to Bustin' Rainbow Six Siege. Today we're myth busting Ace, our new hard breacher. So this guy is awesome and he was also really fun to test, and I have a lot of fun also just playing him in general. But this guy, if you don't know, has a canister. Now he's got 3 of them which you can throw onto walls or ceilings or floors or hatches and it will destroy them. You can also use it to destroy gadgets as well. It's very versatile. But also if you throw it onto a horizontal wall, that one canister will actually become 3 over time and is actually one hell of a hard breacher. Now this operator's code name during development was Slinky, and you can see why he was called that because of the way his gadget drops down. But anyway, let's get on to the myths. Ace versus other hard breachers. So we're going to test against Thermite and Hibana here to see who is the best, who's the quickest, who's the most useful. So up first is Ace versus Hibana. So Hibana here, if you watch carefully, you can see that she could be quicker if she could just click her button quicker. She has to reload her gadget before she can then activate the pellets. So this would be probably a win for Hibana if she was a bit quicker on that button press. But you can see how the devs have definitely gone ahead and tried to make these two operators actually quite similar because they both make a vaultable hole in exactly the same amount of time. Although with Hibana that's taken 2 of her 3 charges, whereas with Ace it's only taken 1, although of course Hibana is better for hatches. So both have their strengths and weaknesses. Moving on, we've got Thermite, and this is quite surprising how quick Thermite actually is. Once put side by side with Ace, he is so much faster, and of course the hole he makes is huge, but of course he only has 2 of his Thermite charges in total. So again, it's balancing out quite nicely there. Now of course there is another hard breacher, and that is Maverick, but I've not gone with direct tests here just because Maverick is so versatile. You know, he can go through hatches, he can go through walls, he can make as big a hole as he wants or as small a hole as he wants. It is really up to him what he does and how fast he does it. But the conclusion from this test is pretty simple. It just comes down to how tight you like your hole to be. Ace vs bandit tricking. So can you bandit trick this gadget? Well, here's a great example of how easy it can be, and you can hear this thing pretty well, so it's very easy to bandit trick. Now the thing about this is that what if Ace does this, right? Puts his charges on all 3 different panels. Can Bandit actually stop that? Like, that's a lot of utility at one point for Bandit to try and take out. Now I was actually surprised with the results of my tests here because I was able to actually take out the first one, of course. The second one I was actually able to take it out before it made a second hole, so that's actually really good. And on the third one, it's pretty much impossible to take out the third one without you probably getting killed by just the hole opening up in front of you. But certainly Bandit did a better job than I was expecting. Now of course there is more advanced ways to use Ace's gadget in this circumstance. So for instance, you don't have to use all 3. You can just throw one on the left hand panel and one on the right hand panel. It's very unlikely that Bandit will stop both of them. Also, if you throw them at the bottom of a reinforcement, then even if just one of the charges goes off from Ace's gadget, you can still just crawl prone in through that gap. And that means you don't have to have a full hole to at least be able to get into the objective. But anyway, the conclusion is that bandit tricking is certainly plausible against Ace. However, Ace can counter it by himself without the backup of a Thatcher or stuff like that, with just some good thinking on his part to counter Bandit. Ace versus Kaid trick. So what we got here is a bunch of examples. This is Kaid throwing his gadget first, then me throwing it as Ace. You'll notice that we're able to destroy it, which makes sense. Now we're going to do it simultaneously. So we're both throwing it at exactly the same time. This means that it would be impossible in this circumstance if you're doing it based on sound. And of course, Kaid throwing it at the same time, it did work, but we also lost the electric claw and one hole was made in the wall. Now we're going to do it with Ace going first, then Kaid basing it on sound and throwing his out. And as you can see, the electric claw gets destroyed and Ace is still able to bust through the wall. So the conclusion for me is that it's really hard to trick with Kaid against Ace because of his capabilities. Now certainly you can get better with the placement. You can place the electrical far enough away so that the Ace gadget doesn't actually destroy it when it pops, but it's still hard to try and not make a hole in the wall. Now, if you're teaming up with, say, maybe Valkyrie, and you're watching on the cams and you can see when he's coming, and then you throw it out before he does, then that can work really well. But for me, Kai tricking with this is far more risky than Bandit, so I'm going to say it is busted. MIRA trick versus Ace. So if you remember, you can actually MIRA trick things like Hibana charges and Thermite charges, but it's definitely not the best tactic in the world. But here is an example of me taking out an Ace charge, although the weird thing is it did actually go off. You can see that there is a hole there, but I did stop it from producing more of them. So I did stop him actually going through the wall. But here's an example of me doing it and not being successful, and the actual charges continuing to fall down. So this obviously is not a tactic I would recommend using against Ace, and it's definitely not, I would say, that safe of a tactic. It's much more reasonable to bring Bandit. But certainly, it's plausible. Now we're going to take a look at Ace tricking. So this is a muted reinforced wall here. We cannot get in because Mute has his jammers up, and it does stop Ace's gadget. But if we place Ace's gadget above the reinforcements, it's also above the jammer, so it does actually go off. Now I also know that the jammer effect doesn't quite go to the top of reinforced walls, so this might be possible on quite a lot of maps. So I went and I jumped into Consulate because this is a wall that is full reinforcement right up to the top, and as such it's completely flush with the top. So as you see there, it doesn't go off. So I was thinking, maybe you cannot actually do this trick on this wall. So I cleared away some of the soft bits so that we could see the wall. We can see that it's definitely flush right up to the top, and I went ahead and I threw my gadget as high up as I could. This actually attached to the indestructible bit, but if we actually attach it just a touch lower, it works, which is really cool. And I was able to actually retrieve this one by shooting this destructible bit out and actually grabbing it. So that actually works, and works relatively well, because then of course you can throw frags in and stuff. The other thing about this is it kind of made me realize Ace has another kind of ace up his sleeve, which is he can do something hard breachers cannot do, which is leave his gadgets and go away. So for instance, this is muted, so he can just leave his gadgets there. He can walk away, he can go and die potentially, but if someone comes along on his team and eventually takes out that mute jammer, it'll open up the wall, even if he's dead. So he can hard breach from the grave, which I love about this guy. This guy is surprisingly, I don't know, maybe too good, but he's certainly a surprising operator for sure. And that certainly confirmed this little Ace trick that you can do. But now we move on to the ultimate counter for Ace, and that is impact tricking. And this is really simple. All you need to do is just hold up your impact grenade, throw it at the far side. That's it, done. You've just cleared out that gadget and it's not going to be busting through the wall anymore. Now of course you've only got 2 impact grenades each, so this guy has 3 of these charges. Again, if he's smart, he can just put it on the lowest part of the reinforced wall. That way at least he can get in through the wall, and it's certainly a pain in the ass having a big hole in your reinforced wall. And if you don't do it quick enough, like in this example, you'll notice that the third one actually did manage to drop down before my impact grenade took out the second one. So as a result, I've got 2 holes in my reinforced wall now. So certainly that is confirmed, and definitely I would say one of the most effective ways to counter Ace. You can mount Ace's gadget sideways. So reinforced walls, they have a right angle part where they connect to other reinforced walls, and as such you can actually mount the gadget sideways on them. Now, sometimes only 2 of them go off, not 3 of them, but it's still enough to actually make a vaultable hole. And of course, it's smaller than the normal Ace hole. So, to be honest, this might be useful in some circumstances, although I don't know if they will patch it out in the future, perhaps. But you can see here a very good example of how this works. Is it just simply mounts to the side of the reinforcement and then it goes off one after the other. You'll notice that the right angled part does disappear once it's gone off twice, which sometimes does destroy the other gadget up top, but for that one I went off on all 3 of them. So certainly that is confirmed. Magnet versus Ace's gadget. So I had a comment, and it was a good one, asking what happens if a magnet is on a reinforced wall and then it grabs onto Ace's gadget, because it kind of would make sense that this thing actually, after the magnet's destroyed, would grab onto the wall and then bust it open, but it doesn't do it that way. Instead, it gets destroyed, so the gadget is taken away. Now, I did wonder what would happen if the gadget's dropping down the wall and then it comes into range of a magnet. Would the magnet then pick it up? So here's an example of the OG gadget going on the wall. And I thought maybe there was a good chance that the magnet might grab one of these ones coming down, and it makes sense to me that it would grab one of them, but it doesn't. And that is certainly busted. Of course, the situational positioning of this is going to be very unlikely. So it certainly confirmed the magnet will grab the gadget, but it will not grab the gadget once it's actually activated and it's dropping down the wall. Jaeger versus Ace. So Jaeger, just like the magnets on 1i, will destroy the gadget. And of course, there's more charges in the Jaeger's active defense, so that is handy for taking out potentially more of his gadgets. The thing is though, are you really going to be in a position where you have a Jaeger close to a reinforced wall that Ace is actually going to go through, that probably won't get spotted and destroyed before Ace actually throws his gadget? And again, I did the same test I did with the magnet, where we have the gadget up after the first canister has actually gone off, to see if it would take out the following canisters as they fall down, and again, it doesn't touch them. So certainly confirmed, the active defense system will destroy this gadget, but again, if it's deployed already, it won't touch the additional canisters that it deploys. Will Ace's gadget drop down from one gadget to another? So I did a range of different tests in here where I just wanted to see if I could make this gadget do its drop action, but from like one reinforced wall to a gadget or something like that, so that it was moving from surface to surface, but I could not get it to do that. It only does that drop down mechanic on reinforced or soft walls, and that's it. Everything else is just one use of it, so unfortunately that is busted. So there we go guys, that is all the myths I could put together for Ace. Let me know if I missed any in the comments below, and of course I'm also going to have an episode up with Melusi getting myth bust as well, along with the proximity sensor. So make sure you subscribe to the Core Ross channel, and also big thanks to my Patreons and channel members, as they do help to actually keep this whole lot going. Thank you very much guys, and I'll catch you next time.